Hello Bishes, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I wanted to talk more about how I manage my time and productivity as an artist juggling a full-time job as a storyboard artist in animation, a graphic novel author and illustrator, and a social media content creator / person who uploads her comics and videos on Instagram and YouTube. So in my previous video, I talked about how my three major forms of incomes from art are mainly from my full-time job as a storyboard artist, graphic novel author, illustrator, and social media. And some of you who watched that video might be wondering, how do I juggle or manage my time as an artist who's already running a full-time job, since that kind of takes up the majority of your day already. And surprisingly enough, it is not that uncommon in the animation industry for artists to actually be juggling multiple projects or jobs at once. I'm just one of the few who kind of talk about it, and there are a other few out there who also share their experiences online. But again, for everybody, their experiences are going to be different, the projects they choose are going to be different, and this path of a career is just going to play out differently for a lot of people depending on what it is you want at the end of the day. So for some other people in animation, this could be doing teaching on the side. Other people could also be publishing a book, graphic novel, or just being an illustrator for another book. And there are some other artists I know who also run their own small businesses and produce merch and products using their art. And there are just so many other ways that other artists who are already running full-time jobs are still able to just manage a side hustle without having to fully quit their job. And for me personally, again, when it comes to my holy trinity of what I chose to do with my life as of this year, that is doing my storyboard job, graphic novel author and illustrator, and my social media. So if you want to hear more about how these three things kind of play a role in supporting me financially, I made a video back here, which was my previous video, so check that out if you want to hear more about that. But in today's video, I'm discussing more about how I just juggle these things, manage my time, and stay consistent with keeping them up. So first, I'm gonna just talk about the habits that kind of subconsciously stay in my mind while I approach my work, and then afterwards I'm gonna talk about what my literal day-to-day schedule throughout the week kind of looks like, and how I delegate time throughout the week to each project, whether it be my full-time job, my book, or social media, like where that falls on my weekly calendar. But first, I'll talk about the habits. So first, I do process of elimination, which is pretty much just not taking on any additional opportunities that are irrelevant to my field. I just don't do it because that time spent on that irrelevant thing could have been spent on the things that actually matter. Then second, I keep in mind that done is better than perfect. Of course, this is not an excuse to just create shitty work, but it's just my way of knowing when it is appropriate to move on to the next project, because if I spend too much time on one detail, I am not going to be able to progress and move forward. And sometimes it's just easier for me to start off on a new clean slate by just putting one project to end and starting a new one with my newfound learned knowledge. So the next thing I do is to avoid context switching too much, because I personally believe that when you're in one certain mindset and you have to jump to this other completely mindset too quickly, I feel like you'll just immediately lose some energy just from doing that, because it takes work to get into a different mindset. So throughout one day, I try to lump relevant tasks together. So if there's just a day where everything I'm doing is drawing, but it's for different projects, I try to just keep it all to drawing in one day. So then next, I would say that this is when you familiarize yourself with your work process a little bit more, is to know when you're better at chipping away at something versus sprinting on something. So for me personally, like my full-time job, I feel like I'm a better sprinter at, but when it comes to my comics, YouTube, graphic novel, I'm a better chipper away at them. So I feel like this is of course due to the nature of my full-time job taking pretty much an 8-hour chunk of the day, so I kind of have to work around that. I feel like this is just a good practice to know whenever you feel overwhelmed with a big task, you can always break it down into smaller steps. Then next, I would say that making unappealing tasks a little bit more appealing is how I motivate myself to just start on things, because let's be real, you're not going to wake up every morning wanting to just work on everything that you told yourself you're gonna do. If you know that you absolutely hate drawing first thing in the morning, but you know that's something you need to do. Maybe there's an audiobook you've been wanting to listen to for a long time. Maybe there's a podcast or song or album. I don't know. There's something that you've been wanting to consume for some time. Maybe you can use that time first thing in the morning to listen to that podcast, audiobook, whatever, to make drawing first thing in the morning just a little bit more appealing. So the next step is delegation. This is a step that I'm still in the process of working on, just because honestly, I am not in a position where I as an individual can fully fund another person's salary. But if I am working with a publisher, for example, they can help me fund somebody else to help me work on my own project. So for example, MEESH the Bad Demon, I pretty much wrote the whole book and I illustrated it in terms of the line art, but we actually were able to hire a colorist. But to fund the colorist, we did not need to take anything out of what they were going to pay me to pay them. Penguin Random House was able to get their own funds from wherever. If you are working on your own project where maybe you are backed by a studio or a publisher or some bigger company that might be able to supply that person to help you, that could be great. And then lastly, I will honestly have to say, not going to the office and working from home has greatly contributed for me to have more time and energy to be able to work on multiple things, because first, I don't have to waste time sitting in a commute. I feel like whenever I have to transition from being physically in the office versus at home, it's just such a energy drainer, honestly. So being at home and being able to be in control of my energy is definitely helpful in terms of letting me just move on to working on my own thing after work is done. So moving on to see how this all plays out in 1 week of my life, I usually like to start my weeks off on Monday through Fridays and then end on Saturday and Sunday, because I like to keep, again, the relevant days together. Monday through Fridays are usually the weekdays, the productive days. Saturday, Sundays are usually the weekends, and that's usually when I take breaks. So I like to keep them kind of just lumped together like that. And let's start off with my full-time job, which is already a given because that is from 9 through 6, pretty much every day from Monday through Friday. And usually there is a 1-hour lunch in between, and I will use 12 to 1 p.m. for the example in this video. Since those hours are blocked off, I then have to work around them, and I know Mondays and Tuesdays are usually my most productive days because it's the start of a new week. You're feeling refreshed from the weekend, hopefully because you took a break, and I like to save my most important things to do for Mondays and Tuesdays because I know that I am more likely to want to get them done and I will be more motivated those days. So that's why on those days I will choose to work on my graphic novels during the surrounding hours of my main job. So from 6 to 9 a.m. I'm usually up by then, and I'm starting to work on my graphic novel first thing after I wake up and get ready and eat breakfast. And usually between 6 p.m. to around, let's say, 8:30 p.m. is when I have dinner and I work out. Those are things that are kind of non-negotiables for me. Like, yes, obviously I have to eat, but for me to just stay healthy physically and mentally, I just tell myself to work out every day from Monday through Thursday. And then after I'm done doing that, I resume to working on my graphic novel from like 8:30 p.m. to, let's say, 10 p.m. That's usually on a really good day, but of course there are going to be moments where I will work over 1 hour more or 30 minutes more, or just, it's not always going to be perfectly exactly on time, but this is just generally an overview of an example of what it looks like on my Mondays and Tuesdays. So moving on to Wednesday, that's usually the day that I have the most meetings at work. So because of that, I like to put YouTube filming and editing videos those days, because guess what? When I'm filming a video, I'm already talking, I'm already getting ready. So that's just the way that I minimize context switching on a Wednesday, because I am able to just do one thing and have it apply for the rest of that day. I can get ready once, get in the mindset of talking, and I will have my skills prepped and ready for my meetings to come throughout that day. And then by the nighttime, I will say is when I resume to working on my video, usually editing the video by this point. And I will say that I don't always finish working on one whole video in one day, and I will talk about what I do with leftovers later. So kind of the same thing happens on Thursday, where I don't really usually get as many meetings on Thursday. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't, but I do need to work on my Instagram comics because I want to maintain my social media platforms. So instead of my graphic novel in the morning, it is now my Instagram comic that I work on in the morning. And a similar routine after work is done, I work out, eat, and then I will continue working on the Instagram comic at night. However, I also do not always finish my Instagram comics at night, and that's when I'm gonna get to the leftovers. So I honestly believe in having cushion time or pillow cushion time for anything in life, because you just never know when things are going to go wrong and throw you off schedule, and that's what my Fridays are for. So for that time period in the morning that I used to have for either my graphic novel, YouTube video, or Instagram comic, I now reserve that for anything that I did not have the chance to finish doing that I wanted to get done this week for that time period from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. in that morning. I could choose between my graphic novel, YouTube video, or Instagram comic, whatever I did not get to finish that week. Usually I'll have like one or two things that I didn't get to finish, and it is my choice to work on either or both of them that morning. Then I proceed on to work for the rest of the day, and once it hits 6 p.m. on a Friday, I am out. I am no longer working on any of my shit, because that's when I'm going out and having dinner with friends, or on a date with my boyfriend, or just spending time decompressing. And then that break that starts on Friday pretty much bleeds into Saturday, where I just take the whole day off on Saturday. That's usually my hangout day with friends, and I do the things that I've wanted to do if I haven't gotten the chance to do it throughout the week. And then Sunday, it pretty much continues on into the morning, and I let myself sleep in that day. And there are times where on Sundays, I do get the urge to want to be productive and work on something. And there have been times where I try to suppress that and be like, no, take a break. But honestly, I feel like there are days that I honestly embrace and prefer being productive, especially on the projects that are my own and not my full-time job. So for when that happens, again, I kind of either leave that as a leftover day where anything from my graphic novel, YouTube video, Instagram comic that I did not finish throughout this week, I can continue working on it on Sunday, or if I don't have anything left to do, I can start a new step in either my graphic novel, YouTube video, or Instagram comic. And of course, on top of that, I leave room for chores, because that's something that you're gonna eventually need to take care of, and I usually leave that on for Sundays because, you know, it's kind of the day before a new week is about to begin, so I like to start off my weeks on a fresh note. Hopefully this gives you a good understanding of what it takes from my personal experience to juggle all of these three things, and use it as your personal insight for if you want to pursue a path like this where you're going to be juggling multiple projects, which again is not everybody's goal, but I do know that juggling multiple projects is not that uncommon for artists, especially if you want to eventually create your own sort of thing and run your own project someday. That's kind of like doing extracurriculars for school is like the closest relationship thing I can imagine. So yeah. Thanks for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one. So peace out and stay wholesome, bitches.